ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? With me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Wildcard Weekend Overtime. Dolphins, Chiefs, AFC Wildcard, 6 seed versus the 3 seed. The game earlier today didn't go the way that I anticipated, not just because the team that won the game and didn't expect the Texans to win, but the way the game played out, how lopsided it was. Didn't expect that. This game went exactly the way that I thought it was going to go, knowing that there were going to be frigid temperatures, knowing that one team is from South Beach playing in normally glorious temperatures. One team is used to this. The other team looked disinterested. It was exactly what I thought we were going to get. Chiefs win this game 26-7. Really dominate the Dolphins in this game. Came out, scored on the opening possession. Never trailed in this game. Did the Chiefs. Took a 10-0 lead early. The only signs of life the Dolphins showed was on one possession where Tyreek Hill had 2 catches, including one for about a 50-yard touchdown, catch and run. Outside of that, really didn't show any life offensively. Tua looked uncomfortable, right? Tua looked like he hadn't won a game in his life in temperatures below 40 degrees. It was abundantly clear that he was uncomfortable tonight. And not because of the Chiefs defense, which also had something to do with it. They're really good. And we've talked about them all season long and just how good they've been. And I still don't believe Andy Reid has leaned in all the way to this notion that the defense is going to have to carry them and they're going to have to play complementary football. That looked like a game plan that was built out of necessity. They still got cute on 3rd and 1 and did some stupid ass shit that lost them like 6 yards and had to punt. So, or they went for it actually, and Mahomes ended up scrambling and getting, inside the 10-yard line. And ultimately, I think they still had to settle for a field goal because of a block in the back by Jawan Taylor. But I still don't believe that Andy Reid is going to let the defense have it, because this kind of win is who they need to be in order to win with the group that they have this season. They can't win outscoring you. They're going to have to win without turning the ball over. And they did have a late turnover at the very end of this game that was inconsequential, but they played a clean ball game, essentially. They didn't turn it over. They did hurt themselves with penalties. They should have won this game going away. The old Chiefs teams, the ones that could actually score, would have scored 40-something, and this would have been a massacre. And Mahomes probably would have been on some C.J. Stroud shit on the sidelines, allowing Blaine Gabbert to finish this bad boy up. But that's just not who they are right now. And I want to see if Andy Reid's going to lean all the way into this iteration of the Chiefs. Because in order for them to make a run at the chip, they're going to have to play sound defense, run the football, make timely plays, make their field goals, and don't turn it over. That's what they're going to have to do, like they did tonight. How many times did they get in the red zone tonight and not punch it in? Their defense has been like this all season long, so this isn't a surprise to anybody that's been paying attention. We know they can run the football with Isaiah Pacheco when they actually dedicate themselves to running the ball. The problem is They're usually not interested in continuing to run the ball. But one thing I will say about Andy Reid is if the run's working, he'll stick with it. He won't get away from it. But his inclination is to throw it. So we'll see what happens when it's not negative 27 degrees with the wind chill and negative 4 degrees at kickoff, the third coldest playoff game at kickoff in NFL history. We'll see what happens when the temperatures are more manageable. Will he decide to take to the air a little bit more, or will he rely on the run game like he did tonight? Will he rely on his defense like they've had to do all season, really, but lean into it by kind of playing his offense towards their defense, kind of switching up his mentality and kind of understanding this is how we're going to have to win right now because of what we've put together as a team. You know what was fascinating tonight, and I've been talking about this all season, is Rashid Rice. We all saw it early in the season. We said he's going to have to be the guy. My thought process was he's eventually going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. He's eventually going to take over that role of being the guy, right, at the receiver position. And like I said, they don't need a superstar in Kansas City. They just need a guy to be a number one, like Juju Smith-Schuster was for them last year, that will do the dirty work, that will catch the 6-yard pass on 3rd and 5, that'll run the slant. He's that guy, right? My question was, would he be ready to take on that number one wide receiver role by the time the playoffs rolled around? Would he be ready for that workload? Tonight, the answer looks like yes. We'll see as the playoffs continue to press on and progress if he's still making plays and a guy that can continue to step up for them when Mahomes needs it, because clearly, even Kelsey still is dropping the football, and he's been dropping it all year long, right? This has not been one of Kelsey's better years, and he's even admitted it. He's still damn good, but Rashid Rice right now probably is Mahomes' most reliable target on the field. Will he be enough? Kelsey will be around, and he'll chip in, right? But I've said this, and they tried. You're going to have to get other guys involved. Valdez-Scantling. Really, the guy that to me could be the X factor when it's all said and done is Mecole Hardman. Should have been flagged down the field. There should have been either holding if the ball was still in the hands of Mahomes, or pass interference on that play where he was running that deep over route. Whatever the case may be, they're going to have to get Mecole Hardman more involved, I believe. They tried to get it to him on the going cutesy on 3rd and 1, and that was an epic fail. And then they pushed it down the field vertically to him, and it was to no avail. Should have been a penalty, but they're going to have to get him more involved. Talked about that in the lead up to the game, that they need to get him more involved because it's all hands on deck. Like, this isn't a year where you can go, we got our number one, we got Kelsey, and then, whoever has it going that game in the run game, they don't even have Jerick McKinnon. He's hurt now. So they're going to have to figure out ways to manufacture offense because they can't do it in the ways that they used to. And tonight felt like another indication of that, because they should have scored 30-something, pushing 40, with how many times they were able to move the football, how many times they got inside the red zone, and their inability to put it in the end zone, their inability to have other guys step up. And then some of the penalties too. They were in some 3rd and manageables, penalties, got a touchdown, called it back, penalty. So they're going to have to clean some of that stuff up. But Jawan Taylor, you get what you pay for, right? Most penalties in the league this season by far, and the most accepted penalties on an offensive player in, I think, what they say, 20 years? I mean, that's crazy right there in itself. But and that's with them not calling probably about 5 or 6 false starts on his ass in week 1 against Detroit. So this was an impressive win by Kansas City, even though I think most of us expected it because we just expected Miami to do what they've done all winter long, essentially. The latter portion of this sticks in my mind, right? Every time I watch the Dolphins, I think it was SoFlo Sports, and I can't remember if it was him or if it was somebody else, but it was after they lost to the Eagles. I want to say it was SoFlo Sports, but some Dolphins fan came up here and ranted, and he said, "We're trash. We're not going anywhere. We do this shit every year. We always choke in December. Anytime we see a team that's any good, we can't beat them. We're not even gonna make the playoffs." And I told him he was tripping, right? But he wasn't that far off. Now they did make the playoffs, but they blew the division. They had no business losing to the Titans on that Monday night. That's the one that cost them the division, if we're being honest with each other. They couldn't beat Buffalo, got swept by them, and that's ultimately what decided the division. But it wouldn't even come down to that game had you taken care of business against the Tennessee Titans. You were up 14 points with 5 minutes to go, and you somehow managed to blow that lead. It's still incredible that even took place. But at the end of the day, this is who the Dolphins have been down the stretch. They haven't been a very good team, specifically on the road against quality opponents. Their one quality win late in the season was at home against Dallas, and they had to eke that one out with a walk-off field goal, essentially. They got destroyed by Baltimore. They got beat up pretty good. I mean, it was a 7-point game, but I never felt like they were going to beat Buffalo, you know. This is who they've been down the stretch of the season against quality opponents, specifically on the road. So no surprise here. And then you also have to factor in, and I know Dolphins fans probably don't want to hear this right now, probably pissed off, get it. They got so many injuries, man. I mean, them and Cleveland, watching the two teams that lost today and just how decimated those two teams were, you know, by injuries is amazing that they even made it to this point. But still, you got to find a way to push through. Everybody's got some injuries that they're dealing with. You just got to find a way to get it done. And the Dolphins couldn't do that today. But what about this defense for the Chiefs? I mean, I don't think they get enough credit. I've been talking about Spags for, you know, probably since week one when they lost to Detroit. But I'm like, yo, that's a good defensive performance. You know, granted, there were some crazy things that went on. Lions going for it on the very first 4th down of the game when they were punting and getting it and going down and scoring and all of the craziness that had happened in that game. They only gave up I think 13 points. I want to say Mahomes threw a pick 6 in that game. Not sure if he threw a pick 6. I know that Brian Branch picked them off, though. It might not have been a pick 6, but whatever the case may be, defensively, they played their asses off in that first game, and I was like, okay, we'll see what happens moving forward. And it didn't take long for those of us who were really paying attention to say, okay, don't know if the Chiefs are going to, you know, whip it into shape offensively at some point this year. We've seen them struggle in pockets offensively, only for them to kick it into high gear and look like the Chiefs again. So I was never really sure if that was going to happen until we got to a certain point. And I was like, okay, this is who you are, right? Got a large enough sample size. I see what you're dealing with. There's no star here. There never was, but that's never stopped you before. But they were expecting one of these dudes to step up, and nobody really did until Rashid Rice did. So at some point, you were like, all right, are they going to lean into this defensive thing? And they've really been fighting it. They really just started to lean into the fact that their identity lies on the defensive side. And Steve Spagnuolo has just been excellent. You know, to be honest with you, if you're a team with an offensive-minded head coach, what you really want is you really want a guy like Spags that already been a head coach a couple of times, ain't really looking to go that route again. You know, he ain't even really looking for a head coaching gig at this point. I mean, I'm pretty sure if somebody came calling, he'd entertain it, but he's comfortable being the DC. We've seen that over the years, you know, as as we get older and we see the older defensive coordinators, the wily veterans like Wade Phillips and Dick LeBeau and those guys kind of ushered out of the league, you're seeing the young up-and-comers, and they always looking to get a head coaching job. But as the younger guys from 15, 20 years ago who are now older, who've had head coaching jobs, they still know how to call defense. That's the guy you should be targeting. Like one of those dudes who they're not as ambitious as they once were. Everybody wants to still be a head coach, but he ain't fighting to get a head coaching job, man. So you know what I know what I got defensively. We know what we're building. We don't have to worry about new defensive coordinator coming in here. Does these parts fit what you want to do schematically? Every year is going to be Spags on that sidelines. You don't got nothing to worry about. I was kind of getting that same sense with Lou Almirono in Cincinnati, but his name's been coming up this year in the coaching cycle. I don't know if he's going to get a gig or not, but it's always refreshing when you got a defensive guy and you ain't got to worry about him going nowhere. And that's what the Chiefs have. And boy, Spags good. He was dialing those bitches up tonight. I'm talking about once the game was no longer in the balance and he knew, okay, we got him by the balls now. He just was blitzing on every snap. He didn't give a shit. What you going to do about it? There was one play, and this to me embodies what the Chiefs have become. They've become bullies defensively, and I love it. I don't know if y'all saw this play, but there was a third down, and they threw it to Tyreek Hill on they tried to run a little pick concept where he goes like he's going outside because they literally had bracket coverage on him. They had two defenders on him in man-to-man. It's rare that you see two guys on one player man-to-man, but literally they had a guy split the difference on Tyreek, one inside, one outside, and he started off the snap by veering to the outside, and the guy went around the traffic that they were running, that interference they were running. So he stops and he goes back inside, and both guys actually started to go outside. So he won. The guy that was inside, which is not supposed to let Tyreek cross his face, let Tyreek cross his face. He was open, and Tua got to him too late because he started to scramble up. But by the time he got to him, Trent McDuffie had recovered, and he broke the play up. That was third down. They brought up a fourth down. They decided to go for it. Tua gets sacked on that fourth down play by George Karlaftis. It's an excellent rush. He bull rushes the shit out of Jackson, the tackle, and then gives him an inside, final bull rush inside and gets to Tua and sacks him. But what you probably didn't see, I was watching that hold because I'm like, he's got to be going to Tyreek. I'm watching, and if you recall the play before, Tyreek had just gotten a false start penalty because L'Jarius Sneed had got up in his shit and he was about to jam him, and Tyreek flinched. So that's how he picked up the 5-yard penalty. And Tyreek was like, yo, but they called it on him. So I was like, yo, you up here in credit card alignment. Like you really about to lay hands on this man. You about that life? L'Jarius Sneed said, you don't believe me? Just watch. Got in the same credit card alignment at the line of scrimmage, an inch man, inching up to the line of scrimmage. They snap the ball, and he jams the shit out of Tyreek Hill. I'm talking about knocked his ass on the ground, then he pancakes the shit out of him, knocks him down to one knee, pushes him again, and then dives on top of him. Tyreek is completely out of the snap, and Tua gets sacked. I said, well, damn. You don't see too many people brave enough to do that to Tyreek Hill, because if you miss, I don't care if you got safety up or not, if you miss, it's going to be trouble. They weren't afraid, though. Them boys ain't scared in Kansas City. They're just not. Right now, they're playing with an abundance of confidence. They're flying around the field. They got speed everywhere. They got young boys everywhere, as they talked about during the telecast. And we all know their defense is young because you don't know half of these dudes, right? It's young boy after young boy after young boy that they throwing out there, and they jumping in like 6-year vets. And it's fun to watch. Because when you well coached, you well coached. Ain't no hiding that. You can see it. When everybody's on one string, you see it. Spag did it again tonight, and they were dominant on the defensive side. We'll see, who they draw in the divisional round, and if they can do it again. The competition will get stiffer. You will be facing better quarterbacks moving forward. There will be a discussion about Tua. What are you going to do with him? Something has to be done. You have to make a decision. It's not easy finding quarterbacks in this league, so we will have a Tua discussion. But at the end of the day, they were dominant defensively. They got it done. They did the little things on a cold-ass night. They took care of the football. And look, know thy opponent. Miami wasn't going to score a bunch of points tonight. Just understanding the temperature, the climate, how they've been playing ball down the stretch, the injuries. Just don't beat yourself. I don't think Miami can beat you without your help. Just don't beat yourself. And that's why I was like, Andy, don't be over-aggressive. Like, he went for it around midfield, and he got it. But I was like, Andy, don't be over-aggressive and give them opportunities that you don't need to give them because they struggling. And know what type of night it's going to be. Field position is huge. Dudes are struggling to kick the football. You pin them deep. They got a punt. You're kicking a damn stone. Essentially, you kicking a rock, a boulder. It might go 27 yards, and you might be set up with even better field position than when you just punted the ball. Get down there. Don't be over-aggressive. If they stop you at the 3-yard line, kick the damn field goal. That's the type of night it is. And that's also, forget about the type of night. That's what I'm talking about. Is he willing to lean into this mentality? Because it's a mentality, and it's a philosophy shift. It's a philosophical shift that he's going to have to embrace if they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, or even make it to the AFC Championship game. He's going to have to embrace, we made it all the way down the field, got to the 3-yard line, and it's 4th and goal from the 3. And as badly as I want to go for it, because in the past I would have gone for it because I trust my team to convert and get this in the end zone, my defense is so damn good, I probably just need to take the points. And you can convince yourself, you can play that game, and you can tell yourself, well, it won't be able to pick it up. I trust my defense enough. They got to go 97 yards. That's cool, but just take the points. With your defense playing so well, just keep stacking them up. Just keep stacking those points up. That's what they did tonight. It's 10-7. Then it's 13-7. Then it's 16-7. Then it's 19-7. And at some point, Miami's like, all right, shit, these field goals adding up. We got to do something. And then you finally slip up, get the stupid penalty. They get a touchdown. Now the ball game's over, right? That's because you kicked them field goals. They started to feel the pressure. They started pressing. We'll see if they can embrace their identity, because it's not what it used to be. At least not for now. Maybe in the offseason, they'll go out and get Mike Evans in free agency, and voila, they're back on offense. But for now, this is who they are, and this is who they're going to have to be to win consistently. Good game by Isaiah Pacheco. These are types of games that feel like they're made for him, right? The average wasn't incredible tonight, but he did what you expect him to do in a game like this. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was solid tonight. Did have the fumble at the end, but they're going to need him to step up. As I mentioned, there's no more Jerick McKinnon. So they're going to need Clyde Edwards-Helaire to step up, and he was really solid tonight until that fumble on the their final snap offensively of the night. But you get to Miami, disappointing finish to the season. And I'm not talking about this game in particular. I'm just talking about overall. You started out the season like game busters. You looked like you were going to win the AFC East. You unraveled down the stretch. You lost ball games you had no business losing. You got blown out by Baltimore. Anytime you saw a real opponent away from home, the results were disappointing. And this was no different tonight. The injuries started to mount. They started to be impactful. You weren't able to overcome them. But it also looked like you ran out of juice. You ran out of gas offensively, too. Again, some of that could be some of the injuries you've been dealing with, especially on the offensive line. But really, a lot of the injuries were on the defensive side of the football. You've just been struggling on offense, right? So I always feel like the league is ever-changing, ever-developing. When you bring something new, and what they were doing early in the season with all the shifts and the motions, even though this is Daniel's second year, it felt different this year because last year that was their first year, so they were digesting everything. This year, Tua felt more in control of the offense. Tua, Hill and Waddle felt like they were more integrated in the offense. They felt more comfortable. There was a synergy there and a connection between Tua and his receivers, specifically Tyreek Hill, where, hey, I know what we get, and you see what I'm seeing. Yeah, I see what you're seeing. All right, I'm gonna hit you on this 9 ball. Go get it, right? So all those pre-snap shifts and motions and all the different things they were doing, it worked early. Then the league adjusted. Now you have to adjust. And it always feels like the offense, after that first adjustment is made, it's always slow to readjust. I thought the same thing happened to Sean McVay. It got stale for a while there, and then he had to readjust, right? I think that's kind of what happened at the end of the season is McDaniel, he's got to readjust, and he never did. He'll come back with some new shit next year. But in the meantime, they have to establish a toughness. This is what I think Miami lacks. And I think as fans, we do this, I think subconsciously, but it actually plays itself out in front of us. And I think that's what trains our brain to think in that manner. You see Mike McDaniel, mild-mannered guy. I mean, if you've watched Hard Knocks, you know there's another side to him, which most coaches are like that. You know, they put up the front for you in front of the cameras like they supposed to, and then they go behind closed doors, and every other word is an F-bomb. But by all reports and, all indications point to him being a mild-mannered dude. People have described him as weird or unique, different. But he lets players be who they are. All of that is great. But what it feels like watching the Dolphins is that they're missing an edge. Like there's not that extra nastiness that is necessary for you to win these types of games. There's not that edge that you go into the game saying, hey, don't mess with that guy. He's crazy, right? It doesn't strike. Like Christian Wilkins is probably one of their best players, and he always smiling. Like he's a good dude, and he's a damn good player, but ain't shit funny. And we down 19-7, and you just committed a dumbass penalty. And yes, understand the day and age we live in. You take 2 steps and you push Patrick Mahomes, you getting a 15-yard penalty on your head. Like, let's not act like we don't know how this works. If that was Taylor Heineke, no, it's not a penalty. Hell, if that's Tua, it's probably not a penalty. But it's Patrick Mahomes, bro. Don't do it. So it's just, to me, I don't see that dog in them. That and people are pointing to the Mahomes run where you had a couple of defenders just make a business decision. Hey, it's cold as a bitch, man. Hey, Patrick, you can have this one, bro. I get you next time. Either you want it or you don't. It's the playoffs. Yeah, it's cold for everybody. Look, it was cold as a bitch outside. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it, okay? I was at home with the heat on, and that shit looked cold, and I was cold for them. It was so damn cold, I went to my thermostat and turned the damn heat on. But you out there, it's the playoffs. Everybody dealing with it. Go make a play, bro. To me, the Dolphins just strike me as a team that has front runner tendencies and a mentality that suggests, hey, when shit's going well, you don't want to deal with us. But when shit gets tough, we don't really know how to handle it. When things start going downhill, we won't know how to stop it. And normally that comes from a player. If it ain't coming from the coach, it comes from a player. You know why it ain't a lot of these ass whoopings and beatdowns like the 56-19 joint they just caught from Baltimore in Pittsburgh? Because it stops with Mike Tomlin. Hey, look, we're not getting our ass embarrassed like that. And if they do get embarrassed, like he was embarrassed after the Colts lost on that Saturday when they got the ball ran down their throat on one drive and they ate up 8 minutes. And he went after that press conference, he got in their ass. That is unacceptable football. That's not who we are. That's not what we do. And then they won 3 in a row and went to the playoffs. I mean, it's got to stop with somebody. If it ain't going to be your head coach, then you need a player in that locker room that's going to say, hey, we're not going out like no bitches in here. We're going to put our foot down. We're going to get in somebody's ass, pause, and we're going to make them work for this shit. If they're going to take it from us, then they're going to have to take it from us. But we ain't giving them nothing. But I don't see that dude on the roster. I just don't. It ain't they coach. It ain't none of the players. So who's going to carry the weight? I think in games like this, you see it the most with this Miami Dolphins team. When shit started going sideways against Tennessee, nobody stepped up and said, hey, it's me. I got us. Don't worry about it. Nobody said, hey, let's stop this shit. Let's nip it in the bud right now. Nobody did that. When shit started going sideways against Baltimore and it started to get out of hand, nobody stood up and said, hey, we're not going out like some suckers. We might not win this game, but they're not going to embarrass us like this. Nobody stood up and said nothing. They just took it. Got 56 put on their skulls. I just don't see it with them. So that's something else. And maybe that guy that I'm talking about is hurt right now. Maybe that guy exists and he just wasn't there because he's dealing with a season-ending injury. I don't know. But down the stretch, they needed somebody to step up in one of these games and say, hey, this ain't who we are and this ain't who we trying to be. And if it ain't going to be your head coach, if he not bringing that type of energy, and that's not who Mike McDaniel is, and that's cool. Somebody got to be it. Because in these type of games, it takes a level of toughness and nasty to get the job done. A grittiness that I just don't see in Miami. When you see offenses do what they do, we consider those finesse football teams, don't we? Like that's the subconsciousness kicking in. You just see them with all these tosses. Ain't a lot of shit going up the middle with them. Everything's out on the edges because they got speed, because they can run. So you want to get them out in space. That's smart coaching. That ain't them being soft. That's just, hey, this is where our advantage is. That's where we need to go. But when you see that, you internalize it as they a finesse team. They faster than you. They want to use their speed and agility. They're not a super physical team. And if you bully them, if you really get in their mix, they back down. That was probably the most disappointing part about not just this game, but the finish to the season for the Dolphins. Is they had multiple opportunities to say, no. We win in the division. We're not trying to go to Buffalo. We're not trying to go to Kansas City in December in Wildcard Weekend. We're not built for that. Know who you are. We ain't built for that. So how about we win the division so you got to come to us and we can play our brand of football at home where it's nice, comfy, and cozy. 69 degrees today in Miami. Instead of kickoff temperature at 4 below. Could have stepped up in the Tennessee game at any point, had a 14-point lead with 5 minutes to go, and said, hey, we ain't going out like that. Didn't do it. Could have stepped up in the loss to Baltimore at any point and said, hey, we ain't going out like that. Couldn't do it. Could have stepped up at a home game with the division on the line. At any point, you could have stepped up and said, hey, this is our division. You had a shot. You didn't do it. So kind of knew what was going to happen tonight because they hadn't shown that intestinal fortitude all season long, or especially down the stretch, rather, against quality opponents on the road. So anything opposite of what they had shown me was going to be a surprise. That would have surprised me. What they did tonight is on par and on schedule. It's a part of the script that they've written down the stretch of this season. So wasn't surprised at all. And then there's Tua. And so we have to have a conversation about Tua Tagovailoa, about the future at the quarterback position for the Dolphins, because he played well this season. He played well. And we say this about a number of quarterbacks in the league. You can win football games with Tua Tagovailoa, but there's a but. And he's not dissimilar from most quarterbacks. Again, there are only 8 to 10 guys in the league at the quarterback position that you can put the game on their shoulders and they can carry their team for a game or two, a stretch of ball. 8 to 10. And there are only maybe 4 to 5 that you can put the team on their shoulders and they can carry you for a stretch of games. 4, 5, the entire postseason if need be. Some guys can do it for a game, a couple quarters, whatever. Some guys are built to do it for multiple games. Some guys can do it for an entire season. We call those guys MVPs. The bottom line is, Tua is not that dissimilar from Kirk Cousins, from Derek Carr, from Ryan Tannehill, from all the quarterbacks that we look at who are middling quarterbacks that are somewhere in that range from 12 to 19 in the league. If you catch them on the right season, they can play really well, like Tua did this year. You catch them on a bad year, dealing with injuries, not playing well, whatever, they're middle of the road. You can win with these guys. Vikings were 12-5 last year. Won the division. You can win with Tua. You can win with Kirk Cousins. You can win with Derek Carr. Can you win a Super Bowl with those dudes, though? It's the question. Probably not. It's not impossible, but everything has to be right. Tua looked awful tonight. He looked cold. The ball hung in the air forever. He looked out of sorts. Even to throw to Tyreek Hill on a touchdown. Tyreek had him beat. That ball hung in the air. Tyreek had to adjust. It's not the first time we've seen Tyreek have to adjust to a deep ball. But he struggled tonight. That's an understatement. But he's been good this season. It's hard to find quality quarterbacking in this league. It shouldn't prohibit you from looking. Right? If you believe in another quarterback and you get an opportunity to take him, take him. For instance, if you're the Dolphins, you already run an offense that's catered to a left-handed quarterback. So let's say you're sitting there, Michael Penix Jr. is on the board, and you really like his skill set, take him. Now, I highly doubt you'll be in a position to take Michael Penix Jr. again, unless the medical is a problem for a lot of these teams. If the medical isn't a huge issue, somebody I think is going to get desperate enough to take him in the first round. But, you know, we got a lot of time to discuss that. The bottom line is, I think Tua's getting a deal in Miami. I think Tua's going to be back, and I think he should be back. That was his first exposure in the postseason in his career. It didn't go well, but really, as a team, they didn't play well. It was a unique set of circumstances. It was not a normal playoff game. The weather was not normal. He looked uncomfortable. That said, he had a remarkable season. He's the perfect fit for that offense. He gets the ball out of his hands quickly. When he's locked in and he sets his feet and he's got a clean pocket, he throws a beautiful ball. I liken him to Jared Goff. When everything around him is intact and it's ideal, he can deal. That's why he was a top 10 pick. Problem with him and guys like Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr and all those guys that I brought up earlier is that when shit isn't perfect, when the pocket isn't pristine, when shit gets muddy, when you have to use your ability to ad-lib and extend, that's when it gets murky for a lot of those dudes. They operate on schedule in a timing and rhythm-based offense very effectively. When things break down, Tua is not the best guy to have at the quarterback position. That said, you can win football games with Tua Tagovailoa. And this offense runs very effectively because of Tua's ability to get it out of his hands quickly and accurately. And again, you got to give it a little bit more time. He's only been in this offense for 2 years. They've gotten really comfortable. They've made some huge strides this year. I'm saying that you pay Tua for who he is. Hopefully Tua understands who he is. And you put it so that there's an out after X amount of years. There's an exit ramp that allows you the freedom to get out of the deal if you're not getting out of the deal what you feel like you should be getting out of the deal, right? If you feel like you need to go in another direction, similar to the Giants. They signed Daniel Jones to that contract extension because he went out, had his best season of his career, won a playoff game, but they knew in the back of their mind, hey, this dude is basic as shit. Now, we can win with him, but everything around him's got to be pristine. Like, he ain't gonna make shit happen. And they put more on his plate, and he reverted back to old Daniel Jones. The offensive line was a sieve, all of that good stuff, but he couldn't rise above the challenges that he faced. Other quarterbacks were inserted into that same situation with the same offensive line, and they didn't fare as poorly as he did. They didn't get sacked 8, 9, and 10 times on a weekly basis like he did. They were smart enough to understand, hey, we're going to have to make some concessions. We're going to have to give him a little something in his contract. But the minute we can get out, we need to put an exit ramp in this bitch to get out because I don't trust his ass. And look what happened. They got one more year, and then they can get out. And that's what I think you got to do with Tua, is you give him a 4-year deal with an exit ramp after the second year. Like, hey, if this shit ain't going the way it's supposed to, we can get out of this thing with not that much financial damage being done to us on the way out. You've already gotten a ton of upfront money and guarantees. We got 2 years of service out of you. It didn't go the way we wanted to. We're going to go in this direction. You can go that way. That's how I would play. But you can't just get rid of Tua or not give him a deal, because who you going to put at quarterback? Who you going to play? You gonna put Mike White in the game? So we'll see what happens. I think Tua's earned an extension. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. Chiefs get it done 26-7, advance to the divisional round. What's new, right? Chiefs and winning a playoff game is what they do best this time of the year. They'll look to see what happens over the next 2 days to determine who they'll be playing in the divisional round. So stay tuned, right? Anyway, let's get to the comment section. Wilfredo Elias writes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Wilfredo Elias writes, atrocious play calling for Miami, and Tua didn't help the situation at all. Like, how many screens need to get busted to stop? Slant on 4th and long? Yikes. I don't think it was poor play calling as much as it is we got to do something that Tua's comfortable with. Like, clearly you could see he was struggling to throw the ball down the field. The only routes he was hitting on were the the bench routes, which were like little corner routes, little out routes, but it's more at a little bit of an angle. And that was the only thing he was kind of hitting successfully down by the sideline. He was struggling. Even the little passes underneath, the little swing passes, and some of those are tough because you get that and you don't have time to get the laces. You grab it, and however you grab it, you just throw it. So you can't really control it like you would if you were able to grab the laces. That said, he missed a lot of underneath throws. Throw over here that skipped to the running back, throw over here in front of Mostert that made him reach outside his frame and he didn't catch it. He was struggling with the passes right around the line of scrimmage too. So McDaniel was trying to find something to get him into a rhythm, some easy throws that could get into a rhythm, and it just never happened. Whether it was self-inflicted wounds with penalties, he was getting sacked, incompleting passes that would have gained 4 or 5 yards to put him in a more manageable situation. They just were out of sorts. I don't think it was bad play calling as much as it was they just didn't execute. And like you said, Tua didn't help the situation at all. He didn't help himself. King Dre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King Dre writes, Tua kept putting too much air on the ball. Those balls felt like they hung up there forever. But again, nobody ever confused Tua with having the strongest arm in the world. That's never been one of his strengths. That's never been something that anybody's associated with Tua Tagovailoa, even going all the way back to his Alabama days. He's a timing and rhythm passer that when he has a clean pocket can be extremely accurate with the football. His arm is strong enough to get it where it needs to go, most portions of the field, but he does not have the strongest arm in the world. And also in his defense, it was windy as shit out there. I know you can't see the wind on the television screen unless you see like the field goal post shaking or the flag at the top of it shaking, but it was windy as shit. Again, understand what wind chill factor means. With the wind, this is how it feels. So in order for it to be -4 degrees, right? 4 below, and then with the wind chill kicking in, it feels like 27 below. Understand how much wind has to be produced for the temperature to feel that much colder. So it was windy. So a lot of his balls were getting hung up and caught in that wind, I think, too. So, look, Tua's thrown a bunch of balls this season that have hung up there and felt like they've been like punts that Tyreek Hill had to wait for. But we've also seen him throw balls where Tyreek ran under or ran across the field to go get and scored touchdowns on. So I think the wind had something to do with that too. Video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Ron really thought Jamin and Forbes were better than JOK, Bolton, and Gonzalez. Can't wait to watch Adam P work. That was one of the most eye-popping things of the day, and I didn't even wait for, because I've been talking about Nick Bolton since that 2021 draft, because that was the guy that I wanted. I was cool with JOK too if we would have taken him. I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. I just thought he was undersized. He's filled out his frame even better, right? He's even bigger now. He's going to get much bigger than what he is, but he's still the same dude, shooting gaps, playing on the opposite side. That's what he did at Notre Dame. Opposite side of the line of scrimmage, fast as hell. When he reads it and diagnoses it, you're not going to be able to get to him. That pulling guard ain't going to get there. That sifting tight end coming from the opposite, he's not going to get there in time. He's going to beat that every time. He's too fast. And he showed it. He was all over the field in that Browns game, Texans game. But I was a Nick Bolton guy. And to watch both of those dudes do what they, and Bolton was spectacular tonight. To watch both of those dudes do what they did tonight and what they've really been doing. Like JOK had the best year of his career this year. And I've watched him fly around this year. And I'm just, every time I see him make a play, and I'm at the house with my my dad and my sisters, and we watching the game, and I'm all proud and stuff because I watched that kid grow up. You know, I always tell him, you know, he played, you know, high school ball with one of my steps kids, right? So I'm watching him and I'm like, bro, I watched that kid from Pop Warner all the way to high school. Like, I know he's a hell of a football player, and I'm watching him grow and evolve in the league, thinking, damn, could have had that dude. Damn, could have had Nick Bolton, but instead they wanted the guy that lit up the combine, that barely played college football, only played because his roommate had a stroke, and that's how he got on the field. You could watch the tape and tell Jamin Davis is extremely raw. It's going to take time. But, hey, these are two linebackers, right? Jack Del Rio, Ron Rivera. They know what linebackers supposed to look like. So I trust their judgment. But we all could see that was a mistake. And then watching it today, golly. It was like taking a knife and twisting it today was. Just take the knife and just twist it, why don't you? And again and again and again, over and over and over again. Chris B, thank you for the super, greatly appreciate you. Chris writes, no way you can pay Tua 48 to 50 a year, not good enough. I mean, that's a lot. When you say it like that, it's a lot, but I also got to think about how the cap is going up every year. And so the 48 to 50, that's still too much. I'm looking at that Daniel Jones deal. What was his, like 40 a year? I think it's got to be like 42, 43, something like that. Like 48, 50. Like, we're not going up there. We shouldn't even be taught. That first number can't start with a 5. It can't start with a 3 because we don't pay quarterbacks that anymore in the NFL. Even for the marginal ones. That's just not what we do anymore. So we can't treat Tua like he's Andy Dalton. You know, we can't treat him like he's Jacoby Brissett. You got to pay him like he's Derek Carr and Daniel Jones because that's who he is in their offense. He's that kind of quarterback. Both of them got like $40 million deals this offseason, or last offseason rather. Or no, this offseason. I said that right. I think that's what Tua should get. Just look at those two deals that they just signed. I think Carr signed his first in New Orleans, and then Jones was maybe like 2 or 3 days later. It was almost like they were waiting for him to set the template so they knew what they could go off of. I'd look at those two deals and say that's what we think of Tua Tagovailoa, and that's the kind of deal he should get. That's how I feel about that. All right. Niners fan writes, Mike gonna have to find his Matthew Stafford. Easier said than done, but Tua ain't it. Like you said, easier said than done. Like we always tell the youth of America, don't quit your job until you got another one. Can't get rid of Tua until you got another quarterback. And I don't see that, like, they don't grow on trees. If quarterbacks were that easy to acquire, everybody would have a quarterback. every year we wouldn't be having this song and dance where it's another 5 to 6 teams looking for a starting quarterback. Every year it's 5, 6, or 7 teams looking for a starting quarterback. You would think that with the influx of quarterbacks coming in from college football every year, that at some point everybody will have one, but that ain't the case because they're not easy to find. And when you look at the backups, you realize, bro, it's just not a lot of talent at quarterback. So, yeah, sounds good, but it's hard to find. And they're not going to be losing. Like, they're going to win games in Miami. They're not trash. So unless you find yourself in a really tough spot with injuries, because even if Tua went down, and this is why I know they can replace Tua. If Tua went down, if Mike White could stay healthy, I still think they could win 9, 10 games and make it to the playoffs, depending on how the rest of the AFC is playing, obviously. I mean, look at what they did last year. Tua was out most of the year last year. They still made it to the playoffs with a third-string quarterback. Almost winning the Buffalo and won with a third-string quarterback. I think the biggest indicator of how important a player is to a team is when that player gets injured, how does that team produce in their absence? You tell real quick how replaceable somebody is. And not to say that backups can't get it done and the team can't rally around that backup, if it's the quarterback in particular, or, it's a left tackle, right tackle, whatever the case is. Sometimes your depth gets tested and guys step up and play well in the absence of one of your better players. But to me, it's always a massive indicator of how important a player is when they're not in the lineup. Case in point, the San Francisco 49ers without Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel. It ain't hard to tell. That ain't the same team without those two guys in the lineup. They lose all physicality and they become a finesse team without those two individuals in the lineup. Period. End of discussion. You can see the impact that is had when those guys are in the lineup and when they're not. So when you're thinking about paying Tua, the question is how much and is he replaceable? I think the answer is yes, but got to find that guy. And as we know, it's not easy to find that guy. Zoe Life, No Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Slowick stock rising, carved up the doo-doo Browns. And that game was weird. And I saw some crazy stats that I wasn't aware of until today. 2 stats that jumped out and bit me in my face watching this game was the Browns defensively were like top 5 in every statistical category. They had the number 1 defense pretty much on third downs, on this category, on that category. And then you get to the red zone and they're dead last in the red zone. So they do a really good job of stopping you from getting there. But once you get there, you got them. That's crazy. And then the other one that jumped out at me, at home, scoring defense, number 1 in the league. On the road, dead last scoring defense. What in the F, bro? You can't be more Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde than that. So you don't get to the red zone, I'm dynamite. You get in the red zone, it's a shit show. You got me. I'm at home, forget about it. On the road, you do some things. Like, that's wild to me. And maybe I got to go back and look at their road opponents versus their home opponents, because sometimes the numbers can be misleading because you don't pay attention to some of the contributing factors to why the numbers are the way they are. But that's still too stark of a contrast home away, right? We saw that shit on full display in this game. They didn't look like a good defense at all. Guys were running all kinds of open throughout the day. And if not for a drop by the tight end, Dalton Schultz, on a beautiful ball from C.J. Stroud as he rolled out of the pocket to his right, and if not for C.J. Stroud overshooting Nico Collins on the deep ball, when he would have walked in the end zone, had about 6 yards of separation on the nearest Browns defender, what are we talking about? Like, it could have been a lot uglier than what it already was. Like, what the hell was that Browns defense about? Because that ain't the group I watched this year for much of the year. Slowick put in some work, but that was rough, boy. That was rough. I don't know. That ain't the defense that I had watched all year long. Like, I thought that they would give up 24 points the entire game. They gave up 24 points in the first half. Like, what we doing right now? You really think you're going to win on the road doing this? Because Flacco started out hot. That's the crazy part. If the defense was playing ball, like we accustomed to seeing them play ball, they would have won this game because Flacco and that Browns offense was humming. The problem was they weren't getting it back consistently because the Texans offensively were moving the ball and they were doing things and they were taking away some of that momentum. Flacco took them down there. They scored a touchdown. They took the lead, 7-3. Texans come right back, get a touchdown, 10-7. Flacco takes them back down the field, take the lead. It's 14-10. Texans get it back, take them down the field, score a touchdown, and take the lead back 17-14. So they could never really build off the momentum because the defense was giving it up. Swifty writes, Mahomes loves it when defenses blitz. That's where most of his big plays come from. That's why a lot of teams stopped blitzing them. If you recall, when they were struggling offensively, like it was 2021. They were struggling offensively in 2021. Is because teams started to play too high safeties and dare the Chiefs to run the football and force Mahomes to take the underneath throw. And he hadn't had to do that in his career to that point. So you're forcing an impatient passer to be patient. At times, that's what teams used to do to Brett Favre. Like, we know he don't want to take the check down. We know he want to throw it deep. And if we keep doing this, he ain't going to be able to help himself. He going to cut it loose and we going to pick him off. Just be patient. He'll unravel. Mahomes had to learn. Like, bro, they're giving you 8 yards on the check down. Take it. Team stopped blitzing him. They're feeling a lot more comfortable blitzing him now because they don't think anybody out there can hurt him. It's hard to blitz him when Tyreek Hill can catch it and take a slant 82 yards. Yeah, you probably – it's hard to blitz when if I don't get there in time and Tyreek Hill's running a go ball, you got me. When he and Valdez-Scantling are connecting, it makes them dangerous because now you're afraid to blitz because he's got the speed to hurt you. But the drop against Philly, the no call against the Packers, like they've lost the confidence of going deep to him. So what's the penalty for blitzing Mahomes these days? A slant to Rashee Rice? I mean, he can hurt you, but he's not going to score a touchdown off of that. And as we saw tonight, they get in the red zone. What does that mean? They're not scoring a touchdown, so what difference it makes? I've watched them this season move the ball and get stuck and have to settle for a field goal. That's how they lost to the Broncos the second time. That's how they almost lost to the Broncos the first time. Shouldn't say almost lost to the Broncos, but that game was a lot closer than it was supposed to be against the Broncos the first time on Thursday Night Football. Blitzing Mahomes, you just got to be wary of what he can do, because not only blitzing him, if he escapes the pocket and finds an escape hatch up the A or B gap and takes off, he's athletic enough to hurt you. We've seen that. He did it again tonight. So you just got to be careful. You got to pick your spots when you come after Mahomes. Metaphor, right? Tua trash, and Flacco pick sixes got him looking like NFO. Hey, Joe is my guy. I was glad to see him come back, but this is probably it for him. But this is my thing. As long as he keeps himself in shape and he still feels like he can play, there should be a place on an NFL roster for Joe Flacco. I can tell you this much. He's better than 2/3 of the NFL backups that are currently on NFL rosters right now. And he could have helped a couple of teams. I know the Jets are like, yo, we did that before. I guarantee you, if you put Joe Flacco on the Jets this year, they play in the playoffs. And with that, and that's a legit defense, not the shit the Browns did today. That Jets defense is legit. Now, it didn't look like it was legit against these same Browns a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday or Thursday, excuse me, when the Browns clinched a playoff berth and they were going up and down the field on that Jets defense. But that's because they had already lost hope. They already lost hope. But that you put Flacco on that team, they probably going to the playoffs. I hope this ain't it for Joe. That's my guy. That's my guy. And Tua isn't trash. He's limited. He's limited, but he's not trash. John Wynn, is the 49ers defense way more deadlier than the Baltimore Ravens in this year's Super Bowl? Well, we got to get to the Super Bowl first. We already watched those two teams play against one another. It did not go well for the 49ers, but as I stated already, the 49ers were moving the football. They couldn't get out of their own way. The thing that should be more alarming to people who watched that game was the fact that they couldn't stop Baltimore's offense. They scored on like 8 straight possessions, did the Ravens. That's the thing that should be scary is that, hey, yeah, the offense turned the shit over like 5 times. But what about the defense? They didn't have to score touchdowns on all of those turnovers or all those possessions. I don't care if it's a touchdown, a field goal, stop them. And they couldn't. But I still think if those two teams meet again, I think the outcome would be vastly different. Vastly different. John Wynn says, Texans Super Bowl contender with C.J. Stroud this year. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. I think that's a bit much for a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. I think that they're one, I always bring this up because for a long time, this was the best I could ask my favorite NBA team to be. Was like they were the team nobody wanted to play in the playoffs. Not because we was going to beat you, but we was going to beat you up. We was going to be physical, and we was going to make you work in a 7-game series, right? When it was the core 4 in Memphis, Tony Allen, Mike Conley, Zach Randolph, Mark Gasol, we were the Beale Street Bullies. We were one of the few teams in the league that had 2 bigs. They wanted to play bully ball in the paint. Everybody else shooting threes. We had the slowest pace of play, all of that good stuff. You knew what we were going to do. You knew how we were going to do it. And the question was, were you going to make enough threes versus us trying to beat you up in the paint and win the points in the paint battle? Were you going to outscore us from the 3-point land by a wide enough margin because we could never shoot to offset the points in the paint advantage that we were going to have and beat us? And obviously in a 7-game series, when you're playing teams like Golden State or, teams like San Antonio who can shoot in those days, they're going to get the best of you eventually. You're not going to – you can win 1 or 2 games, but you're not going to win the 4. You're not going to win 4 before they win 4. But we're going to beat you up. We're going to make it a tough series, right? So we always got the moniker every year. They don't want to play the Memphis Grizzlies. They're tough. Nobody wants to play the Houston Texans. They're tough. But somebody's going to pull their card here eventually. I think it's going to happen in this next round. I don't know who they're playing, but either they're getting the Ravens or they're getting the Bills. Assuming that the Bills take care of business against Pittsburgh. Either way, I think their fairy tale season ends in the divisional round. They win that game, and now we got to start having a different conversation. John writes, Browns got destroyed by C.J. Stroud. I felt bad for Joe Flacco after he came back to Cleveland, after he lost to the Texans in the playoffs. Don't feel bad for Joe. Joe got to get off his couch. Joe had fun at the end of the season. Joe led a team to the playoffs. Joe was enjoying this ride. It didn't end the way he wanted it to, but Joe's going to be fine. Joe's going to be fine. Metaphor. This Chiefs game, boring as hell, felt like a preseason game. It wasn't bad play. It was just cold. Like, some of y'all don't appreciate the defensive nuances of football. Y'all want 45-42. That's entertaining to y'all. That ain't entertaining to me. That's just no defense. If I want that, I can go watch Big 12 or Pac-12 football. I don't want to see that on Sundays. That shit's on Saturday from 12 o'clock all the way to 1 in the morning. I can go watch some whack football if I want to see that shit. I want to see some defense. They played defense tonight. I've never seen a man get hit, and because it's so cold outside, half of his helmet breaks. Like, seriously, what are we talking about? Like that, I enjoyed that game. I enjoyed that game because it was physical. It was cold. You knew they were going to have to run the ball. Niners fan writes, I'm going to miss Adam, Lou. Can someone tell the league that we haven't actually won a Super Bowl yet so they can stop poaching our guys? Go take McVay's guys instead, damn it. Problem is, they've been taking McVay's guys, and they haven't been as successful. See Brandon Staley. And so McVay came from the Shanahan tree. So instead of poaching from one of the dudes who came from the tree, just go straight to the source. Just go straight to the source. McVay ain't been in, now he's won a Super Bowl, but McVay ain't been in, how many NFC Championship games have you been in since 2019 when you went to the Super Bowl? You went to the Super Bowl, so 19, you had the injury-riddled year in 20. You were back in 2021, right? Let me see. I might have my years mixed up. So you went in 20. Okay, you went to the Super Bowl in 20, and you lost. You had injuries in 21. You went back in 22. I had it right the first time, didn't I? Let me see. Mahomes' first Super Bowl was it 19? Let me see. I can do it by Mahomes because he went to 5 straight AFC Championship games. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. He didn't win it. He went in 18 but lost to the Patriots. He broke through in 19. Okay, so that's the season against the 49ers, 19. Then they went back in 20, lost to the Bucks. That was Brady. 21, they went to the AFC Championship game, lost to the Bengals. 22 went back and beat the Bengals in the AFC Championship game and beat the Eagles. So you made it to the Super Bowl in 19, had the injury-riddled season in 20, made it back in 21, made it back again in 22. You lost to the Rams, and then you lost to the Eagles last year. Ain't a lot of teams doing that shit, bro. 3 out of the last 4 years, you've been in the NFC Championship game, 1 Super Bowl appearance. You look like you're poised to go back again. The success is over there with y'all. Now, I get it. McVay went to the Super Bowl 1 time, but he ain't been to the NFC Championship game 3 out of the last 4 years. Just keeping it a buck with you. And y'all make shrewd trades. Y'all get late round. Now, the Rams are doing this too. They're getting late round gems, but not like your late round gems. Your late round gems look a little bit different than theirs, but I will say Puka Nacua is killing it this year, and they've been hitting in the later rounds too. So they deserve some credit. But between the trades that y'all have made to put yourself in this position, finding Brock Purdy and these late round draft pick hits that you've had over the years, finding guys like Kittle and Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. These are not first round picks we're talking about. These are third round picks. These are fifth round picks. These are undrafted guys. Ambry Thomas and some of these dudes that have played really well for you over the years. Credit must be given. So they're looking at your staff and saying, hey, man, it's a lot of good stuff over here. Y'all just got to keep developing the talent because people going to keep coming. It's a good problem to have until you run out of shit. As long as you keep bringing these joints out the deck, as long as you got another ace, it's fine. Somebody take your ace, you pull out another ace. As long as you don't run out of them, you good. It's when you finally run out, that's when it becomes a problem. But you keep producing them. Zoe Life, No Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? I don't know, Lou. Technically, KOC and Zach T are McVay's guys. Technically, yes, but they all, again, you know how family tree works, right? So, yes, technically, they are McVay guys, right? But McVay comes from Shanahan. So it all still stems from that tree originally that, like, Andy Reid has Andy Reid guys. But all of them are traced back to Bill Walsh, right? Because they all coached under somebody that coached under Bill Walsh. So it all still goes back to the Bill Walsh tree because that's where it originated. All this shit is still traced back to Shanahan. So if you want to bypass McVay, go straight to the source. So, yes, technically speaking, yes. But at the end of the day, all these dudes go back to Shanahan, if you ask me. Anyway, I digress. Let me get to a couple more comments and we'll get out of here. Kevin says, Love is greater than Tua. We'll see about that. I think, to me, that's not even a question. From a talent perspective, Jordan Love was always way more talented than Tua Tagovailoa, to me. But he's got to prove it on the football field. Tua went to Alabama, won a national championship. Jordan Love played at Utah State, so there's a big difference between the two. So I want to see what he does in a big game like this, big stage. Everybody's watching. It's Jerry's world. It's America's team. And you got the stage all to yourself. What you going to do, young fella? We saw what one young fella did with a big-ass stage and some bright-ass lights. Your turn, young fella. What you got for us? And that's a real young fella. You young in starts. But you've been in this thing for 4 years now. But this is your first time actually getting a chance to play at this level on this stage. So I want to see what you got. Says, excited for the game tomorrow, Lou. Really think we can do some damage. And even if not, I'm just excited to play with house money and see what Love has in these big moments. Facts. I'm actually really excited to see what he does as well. Because I really think if Dallas gets to him early, I think they're going to rattle his cage and they're going to make quick work of y'all. If they don't get to him, if you can establish some semblance of a run game, because Dallas, you can run on them. I just don't know if y'all are good enough in the run game, blocking wise to exploit them. But if you could just protect him or get it out of his hands quick enough and he gets into a rhythm, oh, we got ourselves a ball game, folks. This could turn into that Seattle-Dallas game that was a shootout on Thursday Night Football about a month ago. It could turn into that real quick. We've seen Love outdo Patrick Mahomes on a big stage like this before. Now, that was at home, and that was a regular season game, a little bit different. This is on the road. This is a playoff game. The crowd is not your friend this game. A little different. Want to see how he does anyway. We know he's capable. Know he's capable. Samuel Brito says, I knew Miami was going to lose once I heard it was minus 23-degree weather. Yeah. Once you heard the weather and how cold it was going to be, you knew that was it for Miami. They didn't stand a chance. I didn't think they were going to win anyway. But Sammy J12 writes, big win for my Chiefs. I don't think I would sign Tua. He reminds me of Alex Smith. Yeah. That's exactly the kind of quarterback he is. Not in the sense of check down Charlie, always, looking for a quick outlet like Alex Smith, but he's a similar type of quarterback. Alex Smith was never, better than 12th best quarterback in the league at his peak. Never worse than the 18th, 19th, worst quarterback in football, or best quarterback, I should say. And so he was always in that middle tier, right? Guy you could win with, but everything around him needs to be ideal. Not going to carry a team, but you do the little things correct, you can win football games with him. But that's why they were winning the AFC Championship every year with Alex Smith, and they still went out and got Patrick Mahomes because they knew we can only get so far. Everybody knew that. The 49ers went out and got Colin Kaepernick. Why? Because they said we can only go so far with Alex Smith. So they ran him out of time with Colin Kaepernick, went to the Super Bowl and lost with Colin Kaepernick. So he goes to Kansas City. All he does is the same thing he started to do at the tail end of his San Francisco run: win games, win the division, take his team to the playoffs. Can't win playoff games because he's not good enough. So they go get Mahomes. What do? Win right after he leaves. Sends him to Washington. What does he do? The same shit he was doing in San Francisco and Kansas City. Win before he gets hurt. The only Washington quarterback over the last 20 years to have a winning record. Alex Smith. That's a trivia question that most fans probably wouldn't even get right. All he does is win. He just ain't going to win you shit when it matters. And that's kind of how I feel about Tua. But anyway, I digress. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super sticker. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super sticker, King of Bluegrass. Or King of the Bluegrass, excuse me. Take one or two more comments, and we getting out of here. John Medrano writes, Lou, say their teams are eliminated. When would Ben Johnson, Slowick, and McDonald be eligible for an interview? You still cannot talk to coaches until after the divisional round. Even if they're not on a team, I think this might only apply to playoff teams, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to lie to you because I don't know if it only applies to teams that are in the playoffs. But I feel like it involves everybody, because I'm thinking about like head coaching searches right now that are taking place, and it's got to just be teams that are in the playoffs, because I'm thinking about other teams conducting interviews with prospective head coaches, and I think some of them have already taken place. Guys have already interviewed for teams that aren't in the playoffs. I'm assuming if they lose, then I guess you could talk to them immediately. I'm guessing. If they're in the playoffs, you can't talk to them until after the divisional round, which I don't think that makes any sense either, because if I'm going to the championship round, I need my coordinator to be locked in, not worried about taking an interview. But whatever. At the end of the day, I think once they lose, they're fair game. But don't quote me on that, because I don't actually know what the rule entails. All I know is if you're in the playoffs, you can't talk to a coach face-to-face You can Zoom them starting on Monday. You can have Zoom calls after so Tuesday, I think, because it'll be after Wildcard Weekend is in the books. So I think Tuesday you can start having Zoom conference calls with these coaches, but you're not hiring a head coach based off of a Zoom interview. You got to come to my facility, or you got to come to my locale. I got to interview you in my confines. I got to sit down with you face to face, get a feel for your vibe and your demeanor and your confidence level and how you work a room, all of that stuff, body language. I need to see all of that in person. I'm not hiring a guy over Zoom. So no matter what, they're going to meet with these dudes individually. So my guess is as soon as they lose, they're available. But if they continue to play, they're not available for a face-to-face until the Monday after the divisional round. That's my guess. Again, I could be wrong about that. Niners fan says, Lou, I haven't seen Tua be able to throw the deep out routes like Goff, Carr, Cousins. His arm is not on their level. Yeah, and you're not wrong about that. Doesn't mean he's a lesser quarterback than them. It just means he doesn't have some of the physical attributes that those guys have, but he's in that same category. All of those dudes are distributors. They're not game changers, right? They're not needle movers per se. I don't like the game manager title because it insinuates that a guy is only good for not turning the ball over. And, you know, managing the game is part of the duty of a quarterback. So calling a quarterback a game manager sounds derogatory, but you better be able to manage a damn game. Like, that's why I don't like saying that. I'd rather say a guy's a distributor. He's like a point guard. That's what I see Tua as. Just get the ball in the hands of a guy that can make a play. Which all quarterbacks should be distributors. But some guys are playmakers, too, in that same regard. Shit doesn't go the way that it's supposed to. This guy can make something happen, right? Big time throw where you got to stick it in between two defenders. It's a small, tight window. That's a playmaker. That ain't Tua. Cousins has gotten better at doing stuff like that, but that ain't Kirk Cousins. That ain't Derek Carr. But at the end of the day, they're all in that same category. When we start listing quarterbacks, ranking them, they all going to be somewhere in that same neighborhood. 13, 14, 15, 16. And that's all I'm saying. And you're not wrong about his arm strength. All of those dudes' arms are stronger than his. Goff, Cousins, and Carr, all stronger arms than his. Anyway, let's get out of here. All right. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. We will come back and do this again tomorrow. Remember, no 1 o'clock game. We're supposed to have a triple header tomorrow. Bills and Steelers postponed until Monday at 4:30. So we'll have a doubleheader on all 3 days. We had a doubleheader today. We'll have a doubleheader tomorrow, and we'll have a doubleheader on Monday. So, and this might start something. The NFL might change the whole way that they view Monday, and they might decide to start making Mondays doubleheaders. Now, I hope they don't. But because it's Dr. Martin Luther King Day, it's a national holiday, everybody will be home. And I think we out on the East Coast over here where we at, I think we're supposed to be getting snow too. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Either way, I'll be back tomorrow. Cowboys and Packers kick us off tomorrow. That's followed by the nightcap. Lions hosting the Rams. So we got 2 NFC games after 2 AFC today. And then we'll split the difference tomorrow. Start off with, or Monday rather, start off with an AFC contest with the Bills and the Steelers and finish up with the Eagles, Bucks nightcap. So tomorrow we'll be back. We'll do this all over again. Looking forward to seeing what happens in that Cowboys-Packers game. But until then, enjoy the rest of your evening. Hope you enjoyed the the football today. Very anticlimactic today. No real fireworks. Maybe we get them tomorrow. Looking forward to it. In any event, y'all know what it is. Until next time, y'all take care. God bless. And good night. Chiefs, get it done. 26-7, advance to the divisional round. Dolphins go home. Got more questions than answers, but solid season for the Miami Dolphins. See y'all next time.